I'm Rosemary Romero. I'm one of the facilitators for the strategic planning sessions, and Reese Fullerton is my colleague that we've been colleagues in arms for 20-some years. So we won't go into any detail about ourselves. Just know that we're fine. Okay. It looks like there are a couple of new people in the audience. So before we have introductions, and I'll let you keep eating, if folks could think of one word that described yesterday, just speak it out. We just want to get a pulse for how people felt after yesterday. I'll say I was exhausted, but how did others feel? One word. Fine. For invigorating. Fun. Collaborative. Great.
Cooperative. Positive.
Great.
Cohesive. Empowering.
Good. Good. Well, welcome back for more, we hope. So raise your hands if you can. How many folks, this is the first time you come to the strategic planning session? A session, okay. So I'm going to give just a brief overview of what we've been doing just to catch everybody up. There has been several focus groups that both Reese and I have done. So we started with these larger focus groups to get some ideas around values. Those have been honed down, and we talked about those yesterday. Mission statement also. We did interviews with all of the board members. We struggled with schedules, just trying to make sure that we were going to do focus groups with the board members. We ended up doing interviews with all of the board members, including Chris Abeta, who we did a special interview with him. So we've included that information. We synthesized, so we've done this big gather all the information, synthesize the information. There's been an internal working group that's helped find homes for these ideas. So yesterday, we've taken all of that information. We've created a mission statement, used our clickers, which was really fun, to hone down to one mission statement, which is this. And when folks asked about this second line here, this is the one that's in Spanish, is I think what the intention was. But the mission statement that was honed down with the greatest number of votes was empowering students to succeed, strengthening our community. So that's what we're working from, is this mission statement. Yes?
Do I need the mic? All right. The one that's in parentheses actually was one that a group at one of the focus groups suggested as a way to shorten the first one, and we liked it so much, and it is so beautiful in Spanish that, you know, those are kind of alternates. It's not that would be the one. No. We'll end up choosing one or the other. I just wanted to clarify that.
Is there another one? Did I miss another hand? So it's actually two mission statements, but it's one way that it got shortened with the empower students, strengthen community, but in Spanish, right? Or in English.
They're still percolating.
Yeah.
But it's just one. The only thing missing different is ing.
Correct. So we ended yesterday with clarity around our vision statement, our mission statement. We've come up, there was some opportunities. We asked folks to think about internal and external opportunities. I synthesized your work last night, and so here's how we're going to use those today. Whew, that was a lot of work last night. So we took, Yash will be doing an environmental scan. What's happening around the college? There will also be some opportunities that come out of that presentation. Your work that you did yesterday, I categorized that. I synthesized all of that information and created a couple of sheets that we will hand out. I think they've already been handed out. So those, I could actually synthesize those into some categories. So folks will be working from those to create some goals and objectives today. So we're going to have to be moving again pretty quickly. But the first thing we want to again do is the environmental scan to ground folks on what I call the reality check that the college is working from. Is that fair? So any questions on what we're doing today? This is going to be another one of those fast-paced afternoons. We ended yesterday, I think, like 3 minutes to 5, and people still left jazz. So I'm hoping that folks will stay with us as long as possible. Do we have snacks, like sweet stuff later? That was such a nice thing.
We
We'll
had
see.
a lot of sugar about
It's
halfway through
sugar.
yesterday.
Okay. This is a real different setting for us, so we've had to adapt somewhat, but I like the space. It's light, and it's just different, but I think it's going to work really well for us. All right. Any questions?
Just one more thing. I want to honor the work that you did on values. We haven't synthesized that yet, but we had values that had come from the survey, the focus groups, and yesterday you just took them to a different level. I think you really did some fabulous work around the values. So I don't think we did much work. We didn't change them. We just deepened them. And so thank you for that great work, too, that you did yesterday. So
All
we're
right.
ready to go.
We're ready to go, Yash, with the environmental scan.
Okay. Give me a few seconds to just set up the computer right here.
So, Yash, yesterday one of the words that folks talked about was like magical, right? And I thought the clicker work you did on screen was pretty magical, that it happened quickly. So kudos for making that work. And I know that Kristen has used the clickers quite a bit, but it really, it's a great way to synthesize, to vote, and to see something happen. It's really magical.
Thank you. I paid her to say that, so thank you very much. Okay, so I get to do one thing I love the most, which is share data with you today. When we were working on this with the coordinating group and within the Office of Planning and Institutional Effectiveness, oh wait, I should introduce myself. Hello. For those who don't know me, my name is Yash Morimoto, and I'm with the Office of Planning and Institutional Effectiveness. So, when we first started working on this, it got longer and longer and longer and longer. And I thought, oh dear, we can't really share this entire thing. So what we did today was we have an abridged environmental scan. The longer version is actually on Jack for your viewing pleasure, or if you can't sleep late at night, you want to fall asleep in 223 pages. But it's a lot of good stuff. It really talks about different issues. So hopefully it's a resource for you, for different kinds of information you're looking for about the college, around our college, in our community. A lot of people worked on this, so hope you like it. Here's some higher education trends and issues. I only have an hour, so I'm going to be really quick. I'm going to brief right through it. Some of these things are national trends. I'm sure many of you know it. Many of you face it day to day, whether you're a student or a faculty member or even a staff member. Increase in graduation rates and degree production. One of the things that's happening nationally, not just in New Mexico, but it's just across the country. They're saying we're spending so much money, so much of the tax dollars into these public services. What's happening? What's the result? So a lot of different states are actually been looking at the funding formula of their own higher education system. Ohio is doing something. Washington's doing something. California is doing something. So many states have actually looked at the funding formula, and that's true here as well. College readiness is a big deal. There's many organizations talking about what should we do? Many of our students are coming here at our doorsteps, and students are not ready for college level work. How can we help that? The blame game of blaming other places, other schools, parents is really not constructive. The truth of the matter is the students are here. How can we help them? How can we help them with their goals, whatever that goals might be, whether it's come here, learning, lifelong learning courses, or getting a degree? How can we help them? So different people are coming up with different ideas, but another thing that's really facing community colleges is the importance of economic and workforce development within our community. One of the best ways to really help deal with the poverty issue is really more education. We know that more educated, your chance of actually being unemployed is much lower. Your chance of actually earning higher wages is a lot higher. So some of the research is out there, but onward. So this is what it looks like for the Santa Fe County demographics, in case you didn't know. I didn't. Maybe you remember the 2010 census. And this is sort of categorized by 5 years increment, but if you really look at it, and categorize them between 0 to 18, and then everybody else. So there's almost like a slump of, there's a really young population, and then there's sort of a plateau, and then there's a high level of older population. And that's sort of important for us to think about as we think about Santa Fe and our community, because that has a number of different impacts. Generally speaking, when I do these presentations, I love it when you come and just ask me questions. There's 2 microphones right there and there. So if you have any questions, just please walk to the microphone, and when there's a good place, I'll say, hey, please give me your questions, okay? Here's the gender ethnicity. So, half and half, we have a high Hispanic and white population, and some American Indian populations. I'm sure that's nothing new to everybody. High school graduation. So, one of the good news about high school graduation is that over the past 3-4 years, the high school graduation rate has increased. It used to be in the 50 percentile, now it's in the 61 percentile. So that's good. One thing to keep in mind about these numbers are that the 2 biggest feeder school for our institution, for Santa Fe Community College, is Capitol High School and Santa Fe High. So those numbers are a little more heavier when we think about the input, where the students are coming from, at least our traditional age students. So something to think about. Here, this is the reason I wanted to share this poverty rate for the Santa Fe Public Schools, and I'm sort of using free or reduced lunch as a...
I had a question on the last slide.
Okay.
I noticed you didn't show the program we have here in the master's program. How come the master's program is not included in that data?
Because it's a state charter school, and it's not part of the Santa Fe Public Schools.
Oh.
So it's just categorizing, and I'm just taking available data that was on the public PED website. So that's a great question. And it's true. We do have a lot of master's school students here, coming here, taking these courses. Another thing you haven't seen here is the GED students, which is another big part of our, actually, feeder population. So thank you. That's a great comment. One of the reasons I want to share this with you is because if you look on the census website, our poverty rate is basically in par with the rest of the country. It's around 15%. But that's in part because what you saw earlier with the population. We have a high retired population, small groups of population with lots and lots of, well, a lot more money, and that sort of skews that information. So we really have pockets of poverty in Santa Fe, the two big populations, and I just want to share that. I'm using Santa Fe school districts information as sort of a stand-in, as a measure for poverty. This is the information I was really shocked. Before I came here, I was at a state level, so I knew what the developmental education rate is. But I didn't know what it was like at SFCC. So 54% of our recent high school graduates require developmental education, whether it's in math, English, or reading. 63% of a statewide GED students require the same developmental education rate. 72% of the Capitol High School students, and 87% of our first-time degree-seeking students. That's a pretty high number.
What about the other schools, Santa Fe High and Academy for Tech and all those other schools? Do you have those statistics too for the developmental?
We do, and I didn't include it in here because I just want to do a quick snapshot. But the developmental education rate is slightly lower than higher in the Capitol, a little bit less in the Santa Fe High, but it's still higher than the national average. I mean, the state average. So thank you.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. So if in that 232 monstrosity, there's more information there. So thank you. And then 93% of 17 to 19-year-olds require some form of developmental education. So regardless of the situation, we got to really think about that as a community, because many students are coming here at our doorsteps requiring developmental education, and we should really ask ourselves, what should we do? Today, what I'm going to be doing is sharing a lot of data and sharing a lot of questions. One of the things we always do is we ask, why? How? Where? But hopefully you guys, as an experts here, as a community member here, could share your ideas about how we could address these challenges that we face. So this is actual enrollment of SSCC, but I'm going to skip forward. One thing that I wanted to talk about is ABE, and one thing in particular, the cool thing that they're doing that I really love is the IBEST program. The IBEST program, correct me if I'm wrong, I know there's some experts here who know more about it than I, allows students, I'm sorry, I'm seeing a finger pointing. Oh, Well, Kristen, you want to come up and just share that real quick? No? Okay. So allows students to earn the GED and a college certificate at the same time. I think that's amazing, considering, you remember that high school graduation rate, was at the 61%, so 40% of the students are not graduating on time at the high school level. So I think that's a good answers to some of the challenges that our community is facing, allowing students to get their GED and certificate at the same time. So that's one thing that I think that's absolutely amazing about the adult basic education and other great things that's happening on this campus, including ESL, including GED programs, but there's just so many things to share with you today. I mean, the truth of the matter is, every single one of these slides could be a 30-minute, let's be honest, about an hour presentation that I'd love to talk to you guys about. But I'm supposed to go over 40 slides in about an hour, so forgive me. Another big population here that we can't forget is the continuing education students. We have around 2,000 registration in a semester, but roughly we have around 1,600 unique number of students coming to SFCC for continuing education purposes. The biggest enrollment in that area is languages, followed by OSHA, healthcare professional, fitness, Southwest explorations, and such. So if you care more about that information, we have a whole section in our long presentation. But one thing, we just don't want to forget that the college, our SFCC, really serves multiple community members in multiple roles and multiple needs. And so I want to mention that so that we don't, when we're thinking about the strategic plan, that we think about it holistically, that we don't think about just one part of the college, but look at many aspects as much as possible. But this is where I'm going to be spending most of my time today, the credit students. So we have roughly 9,000 students enroll at our institution on an annual basis, of which approximately 6,500 students enroll in the fall or the spring semester, give or take a couple hundred. The summertime is around 3,000. And what I want to point out here is 61% of our students are here for the degree-seeking purposes. 5% of the students are high school students, whether they're dual credit or homeschool, or just students who have still in that age between, that's younger than 18-year-olds who haven't graduated. 34% are non-degree. And many people are part-time. Around 78% of our students, our population, are part-time. Now, remember the information I showed you earlier about our Santa Fe County demographic? Here's sort of a gap if you think about diversity and reflection of our community versus our enrollment characteristics. Two-thirds of our student population are female. So remember how it's 50-50? There's a real big gap about male students coming to SFCC, at least in the credit capacity. When it comes to race and ethnicity, we have about 10% of the population who refuse to answer those questions, and so we don't know what their background might be. But if I was to guess, we're sort of close in terms of piety, in terms of what our county demographics look like. And this is what it looks like when you separate the degree-seeking status by age group. The blue, I know you can't see those people in the back, so I'll read it out. And for those of you who can't see, feel free to just bring the chairs up closer so you can see it, okay? The blue is the degree-seeking population. The red is the non-degree-seeking population. Both important part of the Santa Fe Community College. But you sort of understand that the younger population tend to be more degree-seeking, the older population tend to be more non-degree-seeking. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay.
I just want to point out that many of the older students who are not degree seeking already have 2 or 3 degrees.
Did everybody hear that? Okay, so the comment was that a lot of the non-degree seeking students already have 2 or 3 degrees. They probably have PhDs, master's degrees, and actually that's true. When we did a survey a couple years ago, we found out that we, as a community college, have a lot more proportion of students who actually have multiple degrees beyond an associate level. So that's something interesting to keep in mind. So I was curious about the non-degree seeking students, so we did some research. When I say we, I really mean I passed the buck and asked somebody to do it for me. So I didn't do it, but the data is still interesting. So here's the top 10 subject enrollment by age group. Remember this graph, right? We do still have the non-degree seeking population and the younger side, but the course taking pattern is different. Whoa, excuse me. Oh, there you go. A little mix up. Okay, so if you're 18 to 34-year-olds and you're non-degree seeking, you're still taking some of the degree seeking courses, like English and math. You know, what's consistent between all the non-degree seeking students is the hyper courses. They love our fitness courses, hands down. If you're non-degree seeking, that's one of the courses you like to take. And that's a good information to keep in mind. But if you're 18 to 34-year-olds and taking still non-degree students, you might be taking some of the other courses as well: English, math, biology, office technology, marketing, media arts, nursing, etc. If you're 35 to 54-year-olds, that trend continues, to my surprise. It's still math, English, exercise science, education, nursing, etc. Now, where it becomes different is when it's the 55 and older population. You know, hyper is still one of the most popular, so that's really consistent. But then it becomes media arts, woodworking, clay, help me here, DRPT, drawing and painting, sculpture, Spanish, music, and such. So we can't really, when we're talking about degree-seeking population, we can't just lump them all together. Even within the degree-seeking population, what they want, what they're looking for at SFCC is different. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's the credit hours by college, as it is right now. From the left, it's art and design, business, education, and professional studies, health and science, liberal arts and course studies, and trades and technology. So this is the student credit hours. How many credit hours? If a student takes more than one courses, then they usually have higher level credit hours. But this is just raw number of credit hours that people take at these different colleges. Now I'd like to talk about the degree-seeking population. I sort of touched this earlier. I was curious where the degree-seeking people were coming from. Because our age group, as you saw earlier, we serve such a broad population. You know, it's not like those universities where it's basically just the 18 to 24-year-olds, right? You could see that all age groups really come here for a number of different reasons. And I was curious, where were they coming from if they were coming here for the first time? And so this is what I found out. Most of the first-time degree-seeking students come from New Mexico high schools, whether it's around our neighborhood or in Farmington, Gallup, wherever that may be. Although, majority of that 18 to 24-year-olds from New Mexico high school is from my local school, high school district. So Santa Fe Public Schools. But what's another important population that we can't forget about is the GED or homeschool population. You know, it's almost, sometimes you might want to dismiss it because it's so small right here, but look how it's consistently in age categories. So if you look at it, if you add them all up, actually, it's also the GED population. It might not be as high as the high school population, but GED population is still important. Now, this slide sort of shows the credit load of the degree-seeking population. If you're degree-seeking, 40% of degree-seeking students are actually full-time. That's a pretty large number for a community college. But if you're younger, that ratio goes up. Remember how you saw those 18 to 24-year-olds where they were coming from, the recent high school graduates? They tend to be even more full-time than, well, it could be more full-time, but there's more full-time students. 53% of the 18 to 24-year-olds are full-time, wanting a degree. But remember what happened, remember the slide I showed you earlier about the level of developmental education they require? 87%? It is 87%, right? Yep, okay, good. So when you think about all that, you start to see more and more of a complete picture. It's not a perfect picture, but you sort of get a different aspect of the picture. So many of the degree-seeking population require some sort of financial aid to come here. Remember what you saw in the earlier slide about free and reduced lunch? This is sort of how they're paying for college. And you can see Pell, $7.4 million. And actually, 87% of students who failed the FAFSA received Pell. Pell, for those who don't know, is actually a good indicator for students who need a lot of financial need, who has a lot of high financial need. So that's a pretty large population. Now, another thing that I want to bring to your attention is the amount of loans that students take out. That's a pretty big issue. For those people who take out loans, on average, they take out $6,400 of loans annually. $6,400, because our cost of tuition is really low, but cost of living isn't, right? So that's one of the challenges that our students need to overcome. And this is where I get to worry, and I'm sure you get to worry too. This is what happens when our students come here. So I know the data is old because we need to show you sort of a timeline projection of what's happening to our students. So we took a group of people who are first-time, full-time degree-seeking students and tried to track and see what happens to them each semester. The first year is the biggest drop. It's from the 100% to 77% to 56%. That's a 44%, almost half of the students who come here for the first time, wanting a degree, having a dream, taking out loans, asking for assistance, and not making it. I see that number is too high, but that's just me. So we did a cohort study because we really wanted to find out what was happening, not just the full-time students, but just any students who come here for the first time. And we tried to track them, not just here, because we thought, well, you know what, it wouldn't be too bad if those students were transferring somewhere else. Then at least their dreams continue. Because that's part of the role of community college, in my opinion, right? Is to help our students transfer if they want to do that. So this is what's going on. The left one is semester 1, the right one is semester 2. The red number is full-time. I'm sorry, the blue number is full-time, and the red number is part-time. So out of the 552 students, you go to see within the first semester, that 26.1% of the students are gone. We tracked them nationally using the National Student Clearinghouse to see if they were going anywhere else, because we want to track them not just in New Mexico, but across the country. 2.9% of the students transferred, okay? And this is sort of what it looks like over time. By semester 6, so that's 3 years from the point they started, almost 60% of them is nowhere to be found. I'm sure they're doing fine, but they're not in the college post-secondary, U.S. post-secondary college system. Just a point of clarification, though, that 4% graduation, it's a lot higher. But the time we did that study, this semester wasn't over, so we expect the numbers to be significantly higher. But I just want to show you that it's even so, 58% of our students just disappear from the moment they started within the 3-year time frame. So the question I ask you, is this okay? What should we do? What can we do as a community? Because community colleges, a lot of times, we serve the population that universities do not look at. We serve the students who really need the help, who have dreams and desires. So we got to ask ourselves, what should we do? What can we do? Is this okay? A couple ways we could actually sort of see about our student population is, the level of engagement. So I'm not sure if you heard of it, but we do a survey every fall and spring from the community college. I'm sorry, Susan, can you help me? What was the actual naming of it? CESI? CESI. It's up there. Yeah, community college survey of student engagement. And we track how engaged are they, because the more engaged the students are, the chance of them being are higher and more successful. So here's the area, the blue is an area where the Santa Fe Community College is doing better than the CESI cohort. So our students, here's the good news. Our students ask questions, are more engaged in these areas. They ask more questions in classrooms and contribute to classroom discussions. There's more tutoring taught to other students. They're participating more in the community-based projects. They get more feedback from our instructors on performance. And they read more books. So that's good news. Where they fall behind is in these following areas. So working with classmates outside of class or prepare class assignments. They are not feeling that they have enough support to thrive socially. They feel like they don't have enough financial support to afford the education. They need to have more academic advising. And they need to have more activities in the skill labs, like writing and math. So tutoring. So for those people who transfer, though, I'm just going to shift gear for a moment. But for those people who transfer, I was curious where they went. Because they transfer not only to other two-year schools, but also to four-year schools as well. But not just the four-year schools, but two-year schools as well. And so this is where they're transferring to. Most of our students transfer in our area to CNM, but they don't stay there. They come back. And that's another thing you want to keep in mind. Many of the students in New Mexico and also nationally swirl, a phenomenon where students actually go to multiple institutions through their college career. So the question is, why are they coming back? What's happening there? What can you help them? What are we doing better? Why? When they go to a two-year institutions, though, they're not going there mostly as a full-time student. They're really going there more as a part-time student. That trend changes once you look at the four-year institutions, of course. The level of students who go to a four-year institution and come back is a lot higher. Here's just a little bit of information. Students who transfer from a two-year school to a four-year school have a harder time adopting in general. The chance of success is 20% lower than the students who start at the four-year schools. So as we think about helping our students transfer from two-year to four-year program, we want to think about what can we do as a community to help them prepare that transition from two to four-year schools. But many of those students actually come back. Maybe you know some of your students, some of these students who went to UNM, who went to NMSU and came back here and continued their education. Here's the full-time information, full-time, part-time. When they go there, when they start here and then go to four-year institutions, many times, at least if they're going to UNM, they're full-time. So this is the information about our graduation rate. And, you know, the graduation rate is really, the way it's designed, it's really more of a four-year school measure than a two-year school measure. But it's a measure that we currently have, and we can actually compare against other institutions. So it's a good benchmark measures. The dark purple you see is the graduation rate. The light purple is the transfer rate. And this is how they actually calculate a graduation rate nationally. They take a group of cohort whose first-time, full-time, degree-seeking students, track them for 3 years, in our case, and see how many of them actually earn their degree. Can anybody here guess what the Santa Fe graduation rate is? All right, yeah, you've been to my presentation. Good, yeah. 6%. And 6% puts us at the 16th out of the 19th different institutions we have in New Mexico, 19th community colleges we have in New Mexico. But what's more important than that rank, because I could care less about the rank, is that 6%. That means if there was 100 students who came here wanting to get a degree, only 6 of them are graduating within that 3-year time frame for a 2-year degree. 6%. Only 6. I think we could do better. I really do. Can people hear what Karen just asked? Okay. The question was, do we have how many people who have actually graduated within 4 years, within 5 years, within 6 years? Yeah, we do. And the number gets better over time. It's not that we're not graduating our students, because students do graduate, but it's taking them a lot longer. So here is here's a graph of how many semesters it's taking them to graduate for different kinds of degrees. If they started here at SFCC It's taking our students 5 years to graduate. I'm using a median number rather than an average for a very good reason, because it sort of skews the data if you use an average. But you can sort of think of it as the same way for all practical purpose. It's taking our students 5 years to get an associate degree, 6 years to get a certificate that takes longer than a year. Not 6 years, I'm sorry, 3 years, because those are semesters. And same thing for 3 semesters, 3 years for a certificate that takes less than 1 year. And many other reason is because you saw the data earlier, right? They're coming in here with high level of developmental educational needs. So the question is, what can we do to help those students? I'm sorry, you had a question, Zubi? You want to go up to the microphone over there or there? I'm sorry.
In those numbers, are they differentiating between degree-seeking and non-degree seeking students?
Yes, these numbers are people who have said they want to get a degree. So these are all degree-seeking population. Thank you for that question. So we're not really tracking the number, in terms of graduation rates, we're not tracking the non-degree seeking students, because if they don't tell us that they want a degree, there's no way for us to know at what point they change their mind. They might have came here taking some courses, fell in love with this place, because it's really a great place, and then decided to switch to become a degree-seeking population as student, but we don't know at what point. They don't tell us. So this measure is only for the students who told us that they wanted to get a degree. And we do have lots of degree productions. Here's a number of awards by college and fiscal year. So it's sort of interesting information to compare against the number of student credit hours that I showed with you earlier. This year, we have over how many? 600? Yeah, 630? Almost 630 degrees that we're going to be awarding. And that's a pretty big number. So, it's something that we should be really proud of as a community. But the question is, should it take 5 years for our students to graduate? I don't know. So this is why I think graduation matters at our campus. 61% of our students say they want to earn a degree. 58% of our jobs in New Mexico require some form of post-secondary education by 2018. 87% of our students who fill out the FAFSA are Pell eligible. Our average annual student loan amount for students who require loans are $6,500. Only 6% graduate within that 3-year time frame. So let's do the math. 6,500 times 3. Almost 20,000. What's happening to the students who are not graduating within 3 years with $20,000 in loans? What should we do as a community? What can we do? The good news is our tuition is actually really, really affordable. Oh, well, it's a relative term, actually, because it's more affordable than other institutions. Let me just say that. Because what's cheap is really a relative term. But if you compare our tuition rate with the national numbers, national tuition rates, it's relatively affordable. And even within New Mexico, we're cheaper than a lot of other institutions out there. So I want to switch gears real quick, because that's just one aspect of the Santa Fe Community College. I also want to talk about the employees, because those are the people who come here and help our students be successful, whether you're faculty, staff. We do an annual survey of employee satisfaction every year since 2007. And one thing that I want to just share with you right here, without going into great details, is some of the issues we're talking about in 2011 is the same issues we've been talking about for the past 4 years, at least on this data set right here. Couple things you want to look at when you're looking at these things: how are we doing against other institutions, but also how are we doing regarding how satisfied we are versus how important we think it is, and what's the gap. One thing that I see from the data is we got to really improve our lines of communication. It's been something that's been said. We have an AQUIP action project. We have identified that as an institution that's an issue, and it's been an issue for a long, long time. And people still feel that there's a big gap between their satisfaction and how important they feel. Something we might want to think about. Following clear process is another one. Consistency in training new employees is another one. So some of these things, when we think about how can we actually plan for the next 5 years, we've got to think about what we have to do for our students, but we've got to also look internally. What can we do for each other? For staff, for students, for employees, for faculty, whether you're adjunct or full-time. Another interesting information you want to think about is the finances. This is the finances have really shifted over the last 5 years. We all know what happened in 2008 to 9 to 10, right? The economic crash. That has really affected us, affected our institution. Because state funding went down, not just in New Mexico, but everywhere across the countries. And you know what? It was true for us too. What really saved us was the fact that there was a higher level of support from our local tax groups. And so while state funding continued to decline, the local taxes sort of went up. So this is sort of the picture we see right now. The left is revenues, the right is expenditures. 20% of our instruction and general funding comes from tuition and fees. That's about $6.5 million. About $9 million, $9.2 million come from state appropriation. That number used to be a lot higher. It's a lot lower now, but it's about 30% of our funding. That's still pretty high. 50% of our funding comes from local appropriations, and then 1% of our funding comes from other sources. All those funding sources are important to keep our institutions financially healthy and something to think about as we talk about strategic planning. On the right-hand side is expenditures. So where are we spending our money? Well, 47% is in instruction. That's $14 million. 8% is in academic support. $2.5 million. $3.8 million in student services. That's 12%. 21% in institutional support. And 12% in plant and operation. Any questions? So here's the information about where the money is coming from and how we're spending it. For those of you who are taking notes, really, this is on the website, so you don't have to, but if you have any questions later, let me know. So I just want to real quickly talk about that 30% of the 29% of the state appropriations, because one of the major things that has happened here that we really need to think about as a potential threat for our future is the change in the state funding formula. It's a change that's been happening, like I said earlier, nationally. More and more, the public is asking, how are we spending our money? What are we getting for our money? And so there have been shifts, and a big shift in New Mexico from an input-based model, where they say, how many people are in your classrooms, which is how it used to be, to how many graduates do you have? Whether that's right or wrong is a separate issue. But one thing we do want to think about is that this is how the state now is evaluating successful institutions. So this is a lot more complex than it really is, but I have sort of condensed it to one slide. There's a base level funding that we have each year, and whether there's an increase or decrease in these 4 categories is how the funding is really determined. So that's student credit hours, degrees awarded, how many of those degrees are actually in the workforce area, and how many of those degrees are coming from students who have high financial need. Any questions about the funding formula? Once again, every single one of these things could be a whole hour-long presentation. So another cool information we want to think about is our local economy. So this might be hard to see for those of you in the back. So I'm going to real quickly just go over it. But this is the real gross domestic product by industry for the Santa Fe area. Surprisingly, to me at least, $1.28 billion are in the real estate. So real estate's big, then followed by government at 1.17 billion. Then retail trade, healthcare, professional and technical services, accommodations. I won't read it all, but you sort of get the picture. Arts are in the 59 million. Education's in the 63 million. Some of the things I never knew that we actually had mining until I saw this thing. So a lot of cool information. It's a metropolitan area, so it's more than the. Go ahead and go to the mic.
Could you point out which parts of the pie are arts and education and so on?
Sure.
So we can see the proportions, because from back here we can't read.
My-
Could you just point at them?
My apologies.
Thank you.
Real estate, government, retail. Oh, arts. In the picture, they combine these all others into this category right here, because otherwise it would have been such a finite list of pictures. So these beige falls into right here, and arts are part of it.
What year is this from? Because is this pre-housing bust or around? Because I can tell you, it's probably real estate right now is not the top industry in town.
This is from a report that was published by the Santa Fe County last year, so it's pretty recent. They're usually 1 to 2 years behind, so it's probably around the data from just about the time when the crash was happening. Great questions. Thank you so much, and thank you for those of you in back. I'm so sorry. So here's the major employers. Not surprisingly, State of New Mexico is the largest employer, but followed by Llano, hospital, school district, city, us, SFCC, county. And if you notice here, it's mostly government, healthcare, and education. That's where the jobs are. So one thing we could do is say, okay, these are the jobs are, so we could just train in these areas. But other things we really should do is say, okay, what kind of industry do we want to create? So we shouldn't be limited just by what it is right now. We should really think about what could be. But the data I have here really is what it is right now. Okay? This is where it's projected to grow, according to New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions. The biggest growth is in government, healthcare, and education, followed by accommodation and food services. You can sort of see the information. But healthcare is big, education is big, government's big. So this goes into sort of what I really quickly talked about, but I'm sort of starting to run out of time. So let me just skip to it and just talk about real quick. What's really important when we're thinking about future jobs is that we've got to prepare our students not just for the jobs we have right now, but the future jobs that doesn't currently exist. So it's more important than just saying that we need to have a particular program. We also need to teach our students different kind of skill sets so that as new jobs develop, new jobs emerge, we're helping them be ready for it. And one of the ways I think we're doing that right now is really our focus in terms of the green technology here at SFCC. It's not a big job industry here right now. I mean, not as large as healthcare or government or real estate, but it's something we're trying to create. And I think it's a future that we're trying to forge here as a leader, not just in Santa Fe, but nationally. And it should be recognized for it. They even have wonderful sustainability plan goals of how we could actually help our campus become more green. And with the new solar array that we're building, we've been trying to reduce our greenhouse gases within the next couple of years. So I've given you a lot of information. I'm sure you're ready to fall asleep or run away, or both. Real quick, since so many of you shared so many opportunities that this college currently faces, I want to share what I saw based on the data that I've been collecting. Here's the challenges that I saw. Aging population in Santa Fe, high school graduates are projected to flatline. We're not seeing potentially increase in number of high school graduates, which means our input of where we're getting our students may flatline as well. Geographic area of responsibility keeps us from really recruiting in areas outside of Santa Fe. So if you're trying to grow, those top 3 things might be a challenge for us. There's limited opportunities in New Mexico in terms of what kind of jobs are available. There's lots of pockets of poverty in Santa Fe. Many of our students their lack of academic preparedness is an issue. The funding formula is changing every year, although it seems to be moving towards only degree completion. And technology keeps changing. So I'm going to go real quick. A couple things we could potentially do. We could potentially change how we teach developmental education. Because the funding formula is now changing towards degree completion, it doesn't matter how we teach developmental education. It doesn't matter if the student credit hours doesn't count anymore. So the challenge we have might be an opportunity in disguise. We might want to expand programs in healthcare with our aging population because it is still a high growth job area. The wages are higher. The state funding in that, as long as students actually complete a degree, is a lot higher. Serves the community's aging population needs. And with emerging technologies, we might be able to do more than just serving just Santa Fe and serving the state and other states. When I'm looking at data regarding what kind of classes are offered at night and weekends and how we're using our classroom space, there's a pretty big gap there. Have you noticed on Fridays all the classrooms are sort of empty? The parking lot's empty. We might want to think about targeting working adults. If you can't get more from our recent high school graduates to complete degrees, then another place that we might want to focus our energy is get the people who are currently working and offer degree programs for the night times and weekends. Once again, because the funding formula has changed, it's not about student credit hours anymore, we might want to design programs to out of state and even out of country. Have you guys heard about what's happening in China, about their environment? Maybe not. I know a little bit more about it because I'm from Japan and they're always talking about the environment in China. There's a lot of environmental challenges over there, but since we're such a cutting edge right here at SFCC, maybe we could offer online courses for people in China. What's the possibilities? Don't limit ourselves just to what we could do in our state. Possibilities are just endless. So that sort of closes my presentations, but I just want to ask you, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What threats do we have? And what are the opportunities? Everybody did such a great job yesterday, and I'm really glad that I'm part of the process. Thank you very much.
Any questions from folks on this?
I would like to know, he showed the classes that the non-degree seeking students, the graph. What are if you have a graph of the students that register for the first time here?
What are the top classes the students take when they first get here? Well, it's English, it's math, it's college success, then business and psychology. And that's part of the issues that people are talking about nationally, is that if they're taking a similar classes as they are doing in high schools, is that exciting to them? And does that impact student retention? I don't know. But those are discussions that people are having.
Yash, I know the funding formula has moved toward completion of courses, and you talked about it moving toward completion of degrees. And so are we sure that the HED is moving toward completion of degrees, and how are they going to account then for the swirling you talked about, which institutions are going to get credit, are going to be the last place where students land and get the degree. How's the HED going to deal with
Great
that?
question. Yes, I know that well, let me just, I won't say that I know. I'll just give you an example. 2 years ago, student credit hours were funded at 82.25%. Last year, HED recommended the student credit hours to be funded at a 5% level. I think the message is pretty clear. Now, and then they increased the degree completion percentages. So I think that's the direction they're going currently. What happens after this administration, I don't know. But that's the reason why we do an annual update through the strategic planning process.
One of the things I noticed when we were looking back at the slides, it showed the local taxes was the only thing that was kind of increasing. And maybe we should kind of remember that, because when coming from where I work in the fitness education, you looked at all that, the top courses are hyper. And then when you looked at the ages, we have a huge demographic of older, retired people here that are going to the fitness education center. And those are the ones that are voting. Those are the ones that are supporting the bond issues and stuff like that. So we kind of have to balance that funding formula that the state's doing with this local tax increase, and maybe learn to do some more creative partnerships with city, county, Silver Sneakers. I have ideas where we should be using, the fitness center for Silver Sneakers programs that they have at other community colleges around the state that we don't, and maybe getting Medicare funding and stuff like that tied in. So you might want to look at some of that.
I think those are great comments. One thing we want to keep in mind, though, is that to say that only the people who come take the hyper courses represent the entire viewpoint of the community might not be the right way to look at it. I mean, they're an important group of population, but I think as a taxpayer, you also want people to actually complete degrees and also get jobs, and so that it then contributes to our economy.
I wasn't saying that. What I was saying was it seems like we're focusing. I mean, the presentation seemed to focus, and it seems like a lot of things is focused on that state formula. I know that makes up, the lion's share of this, but we also have to look at these other things, because when you talk about the graduation rate, I started here in 1986 and I graduated in 2006. If it wasn't for the College of Working Adults, I wouldn't have graduated from here. I was working 50 hours for the city at the time I was going to school here. So I am one of those, people that it took me 20 years to graduate from here. And so that's what you need to start looking. I mean,
That's a
I am
lifelong
Santa Fe.
learner.
I am your demographic, basically, so.
No, and thank you for that. And I think that's the reason why our mission statement we just saw says empowering our students to succeed and strengthening our community, which is it's not just one thing.
I want to caution us to not go to that place of my taxes pay for X and I deserve X, because the pie's got to be pretty big to encompass what we're trying to get done. And I know as a former city councilor, some of that perspective as well. But who are the kids that are using the library? Well, we've got to make it be an all, and it's a tough one. But we're encouraging you to keep that lens pretty open on the possibilities. The college has a possibility, and a possibility that's out there around bonding, that other institutions don't have. So the college has a lot of strengths that we want to focus on, because it's easy to go down to the nitty-gritty piece, but let's focus on the bigger parts. How do we make it all happen really creatively? There's some exciting things happening, and I want to stress, Yash and I had this conversation about giving you the opportunities that he was seeing, that there'd be attachment to that. I'm saying those are priming the pump for some ideas on opportunities. And what's on your table are other opportunities that folks came up with. So we're going to ask you to build from those opportunities as a whole. Anything else, Yash? Okay, any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment. First of all, I wanted to thank Yash for culling all this information and putting it together in a digestible form. But I would also just like to make a comment that it seems to me that a lot of our process and our decision-making here is being driven by fear. Fear of what's going to happen to our funding. And we all know that we need to have a certain degree of fear in our lives. But I think there's a real danger in making your plans based on what you're afraid of. We need to make our plans on what we desire. Okay?
Thank you. Excellent comment. Thank you very much.
So I wanted to thank you, Yash, for this excellent presentation. I wanted to just mention, though, on the funding formula that it's not just about graduation with associate degrees or whatever, those certificates, those other workforce training programs. I mean, those are so important, and those are places where our students can get jobs right away. And I guess HED finally agreed that they would pay for those certificates and those other programs.
My apologies.
Yeah, we got to make sure they stay there, because that's an important, if they don't do that, then they are really destroying the fabric of the community college. And so in the legislature and in our advocacy, we can't let that happen.
Thank you, Board Member Siegel. That's absolutely true, and actually, my apologies. When I said degrees, I was including certificates and degrees, so thank you for that clarifications.
I think we should really recognize that we have real potential for national recruitment at this college. I think there's a real recognition of excellence, and the degree to which we can get renowned local artists, renowned local writers, and bring them in and as adjuncts, as very valuable adjuncts. I looked around the room when we were talking about that, and seeing 3 of our students here all moved from out of state to Santa Fe to take our programs. And so I think we really do have we can work on national marketing, national reputation, and bring people here and be part of what helps build the economy in Santa Fe.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Great comments.
Ernest, got to come up to the mic. I know your voice will boom over, but come on up to the mic.
We need it for that. For that.
For the recording.
Good afternoon, Yash. Great job. I just want to give some feedback. My students have been through these processes thanks to the open vision of this institution, looking at what do our students think. And I'm going to tell you something. My students over these last 3 days, on Friday, for God's sake, that I have students here, 40 of them, looking as leaders, making a change. And what they told me this morning was being part of this process to learn data that they can understand somewhat, to say, I get $6,500 for the next 3 years. It's going to cost me X amount of dollars to get my degree. When they look at this, just a few minutes ago, my student said, I'm really tired, but this is good information. Okay? Now, they are tired, and we have been working really, really hard. But when a student begins to understand how important that means to going to class, reading my books, doing good at midterms, getting ready for finals, that's critical. And so the more educated our students also become in this institution to go out to the external community and understand the instructors, why they do what they do, and why we in our programs work hard to let them understand that if you can't articulate, write, read, and do the things they need to do, well, by golly, it's going to take them 20 years. But then this gentleman, working 50 hours a week, my kids are working, I call them kids, these students, are working 2-3 jobs because their parents can't find jobs. So how we go back to HED or PED and all these folks and say, think about what our community is doing to us as well, and how we can be more productive to give back and pull in the revenue. And this community, I've been here many years. You're right. The health facilities, I was like breaking the vault for me to just get access. And I work here to do programs. Students want that. Our community wants that. We can drive thousands of dollars in revenue if you get strategic. But I leave that for the business people. Okay? You business people know how to do that stuff. I know how to get leaders and develop stuff. That's my, but great job. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you. So Ernest, I want to just add one piece that I missed when I was giving that broad overview is we've been doing the internal and the external processes, and this is still what I would consider the internal process with the community college. The external process includes focus groups that we're going to organize with these same kind of businesses, the one-on-ones, and we've already got a survey out. So, you know, it's this reach out, make it bigger, bring it back in, synthesize. But a lot of the ideas that came out yesterday were around mentorships and linking people to each other. I mean, there were some great ideas that came out that we've got on the table. So kudos to the program that I know that people talk about the ambassadors all the time, and I've met a couple, but I want to reaffirm that the ganas that came out yesterday, that word was, I think it resonated for people because it's not motivation, it's the will, and it's giving people what that dream, helping them with that dream piece. So it was pretty exciting yesterday. So I'm looking forward to the end of today.
Well, it's teachers like Shuli Glamden.
Yeah.
I'm one of these graduates from this college. So the passion is people like Shuli that gave me the skill sets. Bruno gave me the skill sets. I have teachers at this institution. I am here because they gave me those skill sets.
Yeah.
But I didn't stop there. The ripple effect is you drop the thing in the pond and we share the wealth with other students to strengthen our community. But they're the heart and soul. These people make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah.
So the data I presented with you guys today is just data. Like the gentleman said earlier, the data should just inform you, but go beyond the data and ask yourself, where do you want to be? What do we want to do? So thank you very much.
Whew, thank you. How about a 10-minute break before we do the next part? So that would bring you back at 25 till 3.
We must be in Santa Fe for those to work so well.
This was a fast exercise to just get you jazzed. And I know it's real easy to talk about the weaknesses, but let's reaffirm again the strengths of the community college that we're working from. So I'm going to start with this group here, top 3 strengths. And let me say, Barbara, you're recording these, right? Okay. We have been really lucky to have such great staff that help synthesize and getting the information. So Barbara's capturing these. Please don't repeat. If you have heard the strength already come up, keep going down your list, and if you don't have anything, we'll move on. So, top 3 strengths.
Facilities, people, location. Facilities, people, location.
Oh. Thank you. Yeah, keep working.
The breadth and depth of our academic offerings, quality and experienced faculty, affordability. We have more than 3. More than 3. Small class sizes, and the synergy between the community college and the community in interest in sustainability, arts and design, and cultural diversity.
Okay, we're going to skip. If folks didn't hear them, Barbara, you got those ones. Okay.
Okay, positive reputation in the community, staff as well as faculty, and students as well as faculty and staff. And the other one that has not been mentioned is progressiveness, particularly in the environmental and trades areas.
Very good.
Progressiveness, progressive, forward thinking in the environmental and trades areas.
Wow. All right, so for the next table, remember, building from what you've heard, see if you can come up with 3 different ones.
That we have nationally recognized programs, that we have outstanding talent on campus that includes faculty and staff, and that we have an excellent environment where student well-being is highly valued.
Excellent student support services, access for students, and and excellent resources.
I just want to expand on a couple of things. One is that at Santa Fe Community College, people tend to form micro-communities. In your classes, people that you have lunch with, all of a sudden you feel like family. It's more than just a classmate. It's someone that you've made a connection with. It's more than just a faculty and student, relationship. It's a friendship, and it's a mentorship. That's a natural progression that I've seen again and again here. That doesn't happen everywhere. The second thing I'd like to mention is the diversity. We have diversity of age, of gender, of ethnicity, of income, of knowledge, and of dreams. So there, and also we have this untapped pool of intellect and experience and I'll say fame in town. Do you know, we have writers, we have thinkers, we have, you know, all kinds of people in town that we could, you know, bond with and have them out to the community college and have a relationship with that would improve their lives as well as ours. The third thing is the facilities. The buildings here, the facilities in the arts department, in the nursing area, all over are fabulous. People would, you know, pay to come here. Oh, they do. But it's it's an amazing facility that is, you know, a benefit to all of us and a strength of the college.
Well, since we're the last group, the majority of our areas have been taken, but we did not hear innovative. So we have a lot of innovative programs here, and so that's it.
We knew that there would start to be repetitions and that table 7 here, I think your table 7 would go, yep, check the box, did that. But thank you for adding one. All right, so we've got, be prepared to move. Look at,
Break up the micro communities right now.
right? We're going to break up the communities, speaking of which. So this is where we're going to spend the majority of our next part of the afternoon.